Hello, everyone. My name is Jim Reaume from Bayfuture, and this is Hey Bay City.
Jim, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
When you took over the reins of Bayfuture, I was like, I got to get Jim on because you see Bayfuture, the logo, the name all over Bay County, and if you're not directly involved in the economic development world, like 99% of people, it can be easy to say, I see their name, I don't know what they do.
That's 100% true.
Yeah, and I just think it's so important to sit down and just like give a 101 of Bayfuture and what economic development means and examples of projects that you've helped assist with or just how you function in the community, because it can be easy to just overlook just an amazing resource we have in Bayfuture in Bay County. So I'm looking forward to talking to you. Let's talk first about Jim, the person. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? How'd you end up in Bayfuture?
So I grew up West Side Bay City, back before school of choice and everything. It's fun to remember with all my old fart friends about how there were rivalries. There were East Side schools and West Side schools and all those kind of things, and it was a lot of fun. I went to Handy High School. After high school, was in really no mature shape to go to college. I probably would have wasted every credit. So
You'd still be in college.
Probably. So I went into the Army because it was an impulsive decision.
Yeah.
Looking back.
Did you have family in the Army?
No.
Wow.
And I just knew that what I didn't want to do was like tread water.
Yeah.
And so went into the Army and stayed there for almost 10 years. And my daughter was getting to be school age. And that was a tough decision. Like, do we keep moving around or do we go back and let her get to know her family, and either I make it a career or I don't? And we came back. And at the time it felt like a tough decision, but looking back, it really was an easy decision. And just really enjoyed that time. But I think that time in the Army really laid a solid foundation for the way I approached so many other things later. I'm very grateful for that. And if I wouldn't have had that, like you said, I would have been who knows what. And now I live East Side, so been all over town. And my wife, Leanne's her last year of school teaching. She's going to retire. And
thanks, Leanne.
Yeah. So, transitioned out of that and, a couple things here and there. And then I tell folks economic development is not something a lot of people seek out. It generally finds you. And I'm a staunch community advocate, and this is a perfect role for me because it lets me cheerlead every single day.
Yeah. I cheerlead, but I also think you get to cheerlead because you are aware of or have had a hand in or assisted with in some way evidence of great things in the community. It's more than just saying, I really like it here. I like it here because of this happening, and I see these people doing great things. And so I love that kind of connection.
Right.
There.
And to build on that, Phil, what's really cool, being a cheerleader, I'll kind of go back to that because I couldn't think of another word quickly, but when you drive down the street and you see people going into work and you're like, that's pretty cool because that was there because of something that I got to do at my job, and that affects other people's lives. That's kind of not many folks get to go home feeling like that. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it doesn't directly affect like my life, like I didn't get a job because of that project, it can be easy to not be aware that thing has happened in the community. I mean, I see it all the time. And I think this conversation is very important in maybe opening eyes to say, oh, like I didn't know that, or I see this happening, or I didn't hear about that, or this is how this works. And so on Monday, you guys gave a presentation to the city commission, kind of like a recap and what Bayfuture's been up to and a little bit of a 101. And so we're going to use that as kind of a framework for our conversation and highlight some things and talk about some things. We should start off on just home base. Like, what is it that Bayfuture does?
So it's really hard to define economic development, especially to people outside the industry. But really what it is in the simplest form, the easiest way to understand is my job is to increase the tax base for municipalities so they can offer more robust services to their citizens. And the flip side of that is to increase the workforce and retain and get that workforce trained and all those kind of things to keep them here. That's the simplest way to say it.
Yeah, it's economic development that benefits both the municipality because they can address infrastructure and et cetera, things that we want as citizens. But it is also economic development on the citizen side because now there are more jobs available to me that I might be able to pursue or career opportunities. Or
more police, more fire, more taxes for road improvement, all those things.
Yes, yeah. I love it. Cool. So carry on. Sorry.
So like I said, it's really hard to define and it really doesn't have any borders. So 10 years ago, economic developers plates, nobody was really talking about housing or childcare, where those are really taking up a huge portion of our plate now, because without those things, it doesn't really, if we got a great project in this week and it had 1,000 jobs, to be honest, we'd have to have an honest discussion with that company and say, I don't think we can support that because what would happen? Do we have the infrastructure for that? Can we take care of that?
Yeah.
And I know in our region, could we disperse 1,000 people around? Probably, but probably is not a great answer.
Yeah.
So I'm a pretty competitive guy. I would selfishly like to be able to have all of those answers solved. Well, that's pie in the sky thinking. That's probably not going to happen. But just in 2024 in Bay County, there've been 325 housing units announced, not just to be built this year, but in the next couple of years. And that's just in Bay County. So, and there's more announcements coming. And so there are people looking at this problem and saying, we want to figure this out.
Yeah.
The state is doing what they can to try to help childcare, but that's really tough if there's nobody who wants to work in a childcare. I shouldn't say it like that, but if there are less people who want to work in a childcare facility, COVID really put the zap on that, where people had to go find other things to do, and to lure them back, even at a comparable wage, people are like, do I want the thing where it's a little more volatile, or do I want my stable paycheck? So trying to recruit folks back into that industry, that's the hard part. And trying to solve that, if anybody has that solution, they should definitely email us and let us know. They should not give that solution away because it's very valuable. They should sell it.
Yes. At least keep it in Bay County.
Right.
I love what you're saying because it really highlights the nuance that is economic development. It's more than just saying, what's the company that can bring 7,000 jobs here right now? Because are we going to be able to support that?
Right.
There's other questions that go along with that. On the surface, it looks like maybe an easy answer. Well, we just need to get as many jobs here as possible, or XYZ. When you're saying with the childcare, well, there's other elements at play, and so you have to also consider those and address those and balance things out and figure those things out so that you're successful. You've got a high probability of success rather than just you check the box, went away, and now an investment happened that was here for 6 months, a year, 3 years, whatever, and then it wasn't able to be supported and now it's gone.
And I know you're a staunch advocate for letting people know about our population decline and how it happened and why. Well, that was incremental over a long time.
Right.
Even if we had the opportunity to correct that, say in 5 years, if we added 40,000 people, how, where could we, it would be like camps on the outskirts of town. It would be chaos and bedlam.
Yep.
But could we add 250 people a year? Yeah, I think we could do that.
Yeah. Yeah. When you talk about community development, economic development, just the growth of a community in general, the incremental approach to that growth is always the most successful because you can sustain that growth over time. That growth can be adjusted as years go by and communities' needs change. You're not looking for a silver bullet answer and saying, here's all of our investment, all our money, all our things, because this is going to save us. And now the community overly depends on that. You see that in small communities across the country 1980s come around, 1990s come around, and these huge factories start going out of business, and the bottom falls out of the community because that was the thing. I grew up in Elma, and we had Total Petroleum on the outskirts of town, and that was the huge employer. And when that refinery closed down, like that, it was huge. I mean, I remember even as a kid in grade school hearing adults talk like, this could be the death of our city. Now, we had Elma College, which kind of helped buffer that a little bit, but this incremental approach towards development, well, why don't we have 10,000 things going on right now? Because that's not the best for the community. It's step by step, making the right move, and then the next right move, and then the next right move.
Right, exactly. And it's a good point you're making about if an industry leaves, what happens to the town. It's not just the people who work at the factory. It's all those indirect and induced jobs as well.
Yeah.
So for every base wage job that we help bring to Bay County, a good example, the Mersen project in the south end of Bay City, they're investing $75 million into their graphite factory that supports semiconductor industry. That's also 90, and you hear this term a lot, high paying jobs. So what does that actually mean? They're bringing in a lot of engineers, R&D folks, and they have production folks and they're well paid because that's a skill. It's not you just push a button and wait. But those jobs help create, when this money comes into the economy, now we have more people selling them insurance. We have more people having to sell them cars and serve them in restaurants, and those jobs get created. Those are the induced jobs. And so you can take a 900 job figure, and that ends up turning into 1,800 total jobs. And we don't count those because those aren't generally base wage jobs, but that's what when I say we don't count those, Bayfuture doesn't count those. But for a community, that's a whole bunch more people being able to earn some money. And, if an industry left, those induced jobs go as well because they're not needed.
Yeah.
And so that's where the community really gets the sledgehammer.
I love pointing out that there's always more things to think about. On the surface, we think about, well, jobs, we just need more jobs. Well, there's another layer to that. We need more high quality jobs that people can enter into and say, yeah, this is going to be my career for the rest of my life, because from an attraction retention standpoint, we can keep those people here. If they're making a living, a high quality life because of their employment, we need those kinds of jobs. You're going to create 900 jobs that people can't survive on. Us as a community, yeah, we can say on the surface level, we have almost 1,000 new jobs. But if those 1,000 people are struggling through those jobs, we're not winning as a community.
Right.
And so there's another layer to that we need more jobs equation that we need to think about as well.
100%. And the number for Bay County right now that the state targets is $20.80 an hour. And we're in September 2024 here. So if this gets watched in the future, so there's a little
time capsule
there. But that's the number we shoot for average wage for a project. And the state targets that for an incentive. So that companies certainly want to meet that number. But in our community, that number for a young person, you can probably rent an apartment and have a halfway decent car and live a reasonable life. Certainly, we're not talking Taj Mahal and new Escalade or anything like that. Boy, I dated myself when I said Escalade. Yeah. But for somebody starting out, that's pretty meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this presentation, one of the things that you have here is one of the functions of Bayfuture being new business recruitment and growing jobs. And you've got a bullet point here over $1 billion investment. Can you talk to me about that?
So we're coming up on the end of the 5th year of our current strategic plan. And during the strategic plan, Bayfuture has aided in recruiting over $1 billion, just over $1 billion in investment into Bay County. If there's a couple more announcements probably going to happen before the end of the year, so we could be much higher than that, meaningful announcements.
Awesome.
But if not, we'll chalk them up to the next strategic plan. But either way, this $1 billion is like the bottom of what the company reported when they announced. So just to give you what I mean by that is when Michigan Sugar did their desugarization facility, which we should definitely set some time apart to talk about that separately.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
They announced it as like 75 million. Well, it turned out to be 109 million.
Oh, wow.
So when we say $1 billion, it's probably closer to 1.5 in reality. But we're not going to claim that because that's not what was reported.
Yeah, right.
But in reality, if we were to go back and do the math, it's probably closer to $1.5 billion.
Wow. Why this kind of goes to the 101 of Bayfuture. Like, why does Bay County need an organization like Bayfuture? Because again, I'm trying to talk from somebody who's not in the thick of the community, or maybe they're starting to get interested in the mechanics of how the community works. And why does Bay County need Bayfuture supporting economic development? Why doesn't it just kind of happen on its own?
And sometimes it does kind of happen on its own.
Yeah.
The metaphor I use is when Columbus hit the beach, he said, "I'm here." He didn't know where he was. And sometimes it happens accidentally and you get like, "Oh, we made it."
Yes.
So we're a public-private nonprofit. So that gives us a lot more leeway than, say, a government entity like the county or Williams Township or Pinconning or places like this, where they have to deal within a government set of rules and how they deal with folks who are interested in their community and things like that. Well, our organization has a lot more leeway to be able to communicate with folks and bring them around and have conversations with them that a government agency, it would be inappropriate for them to have. Mm-hmm. We can advocate for certain things and kind of dissuade others that communities don't want. We are able to leverage the relationships we have with other private and public entities to be able to move that ball down the field when it comes to project work or just day-to-day operations. And also, it's an expense that government really doesn't want to take on because now you have to have an office and you have to we have to travel and all these kind of things. Mm-hmm. And it's just easier to have an organization like Bayfuture do this work for the entire county instead of maybe Monitor Township has their economic development group mm-hmm. and Merritt Township has theirs. And the reason that wouldn't work is they would have to have like a border of, and we don't, because we also know right. that when a project moves into Bangor Township, it's good for Bay City, it's good for Monitor Township, right. it's good for, and everybody sees that as well. And that's why it works on this kind of scope. Yeah,
yeah. And I want to highlight that point is when Michigan Sugar makes an investment like the desugarization facility, Bay County as a whole benefits, the region benefits from that. It may not be directly located in Caucallin or Pinconning or something going up in Caucallin and Pinconning, and Bay City can be like, yeah, but what about us? That's really what growth means. It means we all grow together. We all share in the success of each other. Because it happened on the other side of the river doesn't right. mean that there aren't direct benefits on the other side of the river. And so thinking that way as a holistic approach to a community, I love that idea.
For sure. And Michigan Sugar is either the first or second largest employer in 4 different counties. Wow. So what they do for work and the impact they have on all of these communities, whether it be out in Fairgrove or Seaboing here in Monitor Township / Bay City, that impact is huge because these are folks making products that friends and family use every day.
Yeah, love it. Also on your presentation, workforce, one of the functions of Bayfuture, more than $2.1 million in training funds, strong local partnerships connecting Bay County businesses to talent pipeline. Talk to me about workforce.
So so say we get these 900 jobs, right? And that, now what? So the Going Pro Talent Fund, other things that Delta College offers like Michigan Reconnect or the Michigan New Jobs training program, trying to figure out what works best for the employer and the employee who's now going to have to work, or doesn't have to work, but is going to work at that place. Our friends at Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works have helped Bay County companies just in the last couple of years leverage more than $2.1 million in training funds. Application cycle is opening here soon, timestamp, but there's 2 cycles a year now, and it's a great program. And this is one of those things where, so again, circling back to me being a competitive guy, these funds are going to be spent somewhere in Michigan. And if I had my way, it would all be here.
Yep.
Every company would sign up and be awarded. That's not reality, but I want everybody to try, because if there's a $5,000 training and you can get $2,000 back, if you're a small business, that's meaningful. Michigan Sugar, Dow, these folks, their training grants are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars because they have a lot more people to train, and then everything in between. Delta College is a great partner and a great example of how they kind of step up and morph themselves to the situation. Is we didn't really have a semiconductor facility around here. SK Siltron moves in, Delta meets with them. They have a meeting of the minds and come up with a curriculum that helps SK work with their new hires so they get a certain prerequisite to be able to get out on the floor and make a meaningful impact right away. And Delta does that with so many companies, not just in Bay County, all throughout the region. And we are really lucky in the Great Lakes Bay region to have Saginaw Valley State and Delta College as partners, because they're not just being reactive, they're being very proactive to a lot of the problems that they recognize either with or without the community's help. And it's just such a great resource to have these. And we could go further out, and we have a lot of great universities in the Great Lakes Bay region, but directly attached to Bay County with Delta and Saginaw Valley, we're just so lucky to have them as partners.
Yeah, shout out to those two educational institutions, because they're forming partnerships between each other all the time. And I'm talking to folks from both, and they're very attuned and willing to adapt themselves to what the community needs and offer something that they say, hey, this can fill a gap. This can get us more medical students. This can get more people coming back to school for free. This is a new program that we see a need for in the future. And so we're going to start it right now so that we're training people as we go. So shout out to both of those, because that's such a critical piece in the economic development portion of our community, as well as the attraction retention portion of our community. If we're equipping people more effectively, they're going to be more successful. The employers are going to be more successful. More success grows more success down the line. And so shout out to them, because that's not true for every university. That's not true for every college. They're doing their thing, the same thing they've been doing for 150 years, but they're coming out with new ideas all the time, and I love that.
That's 100%. I appreciate you saying that, Phil, because I'm a Delta College alumni, but that was a lifetime ago. But there's still, I think they're per credit hour, and don't timestamp this part, but I think it's like $69 if you're in the region. That's crazy. And if you're 21 and older and you don't have a degree, you can go to school for free right now.
That's Michigan Reconnect, people.
Yeah. And if we talk to employers about this to encourage their employees to upskill themselves for free, and all the employer has to do is be a little flexible, maybe with the schedule now and again, and it doesn't cost them a dime. If you have somebody at the front desk who you want to, I think we're going to kind of give them some HR duties. Let them go to a class.
Yep.
All this stuff, it's just great.
And it's legit education, too. Like, Delta's skilled trade programs are awesome. So if you're flirting with that idea, 21 or over, Michigan Reconnect will send you back to school for free. Get in there. Man, it's going to be transformative.
It's huge. And their numbers are, Delta was either first or second in the state at one point in the past year. The last, I don't have the current stats. But again, I'm a pretty competitive guy. I want to make them so busy they can't stand it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny where we hear the general complaints in social media. People like to maybe dwell in a sour mood, and nobody will help us. It's like, I've posted this all over Facebook, like the complaints page, the positivity pages, everything. And you would think that there'd be all kinds of signups. Like, these are Facebook groups and have 15,000 people or whatever, put it on social media. And I guess I don't really know what the end result is, but I would love to see everybody driving back and forth out Hotchkiss going to Delta College.
Yep. With welders in hand and hammers and things like, I'm going to school. I love that. Shout out to Delta and SVS. You guys are crushing it. So important to us in Bay County. Next function of Bayfuture, market available shovel-ready locations and sites, a comprehensive list of available sites and buildings, more than $4.5 million in site readiness funds, relationships with site selectors. So talk to me about this, these available shovel-ready locations.
So Bay County, we don't have, some places have a really robust portfolio of industrial buildings.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have that. We have some brownfield sites and things. And to kind of translate for folks who don't know what that is, a brownfield is like a dirty site. And dirty just means it needs some remediation. It might have
chemicals in the ground.
Yeah.
It used to be a factory.
Some old tiles,
Yeah.
lead paint, any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So what we do have is a lot of spots that are agriculture maybe, or maybe a farmer doesn't have a great succession plan. His family says, I don't want to do that anymore. And they're looking to, they don't want to lease it. They're getting older, whatever. But we have a lot of great sites that are ready to be developed that are near some really great infrastructure. There's a 192-acre site just on the east side of Fabiano Brothers in Monitor Township that has had some really serious looks from some very serious companies. And that's where some of the, and I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent here, but that's where some of the issues were located geographically halfway up a peninsula. Sometimes that's a disqualifier.
For transportation, logistics, and things like that, because you have to drive completely out of the state, and then you can drive to where you are.
Right,
as opposed,
east or west,
yeah,
right?
North, south, east, west, yeah.
And I know that's not the only reason, and one of them was going to be like 2,200 jobs, and we had to have a serious discussion about what that might look like, and they kind of got cold feet. And but the site readiness dollars, right now we're working through a $4.1 million grant in Monitor Township in the 3 Mile Wilder area to put sanitary sewer there. There's some nice properties adjacent to I-75 there that are ready for development, and the MEDC came through with a grant, and the citizens of Monitor Township don't have to pay a dime to get that added infrastructure.
Awesome.
Yeah, and
which is something that like on our everyday lives we don't think about. Like, well, we need infrastructure in place to attract companies to take advantage of these sites. So because you can't just say, well, here's this 100 acres of farm field, move your factory here if there's not the infrastructure to be able to support that. So you have to build that infrastructure first to then market the site. But where are you going to get that money from? Well, citizens aren't going to be super jazzed about, raise my taxes so that maybe you can get this site sold in a couple decades.
Speculative millages really pass.
Yeah, it's like, understandably, it would be a hard sell. So again, it speaks to the necessity of Bayfuture in saying, we can go out and we can work with the MEDC to leverage this for a $4 million grant so that we can have this infrastructure. It benefits all of us. I don't think about that because I'm not thinking about sanitary sewer out in a farm field.
Sure.
But it will benefit me in some way eventually down the line. But we have to have an organization like Bayfuture taking advantage of that. Otherwise, like you said, that money is going to go someplace else if we don't.
100%.
If we don't capture it. Like millions and millions of dollars are going to get funneled outside of us if we don't have a team on the ground going, oh, we can use that, we can use that, we can use that, we can use that.
And to take that one step further, our economic development friends at Saginaw Future and Midland Business Alliance, Middle Michigan Development Corporation, Aranac, all these counties that kind of surround Bay County, they're all doing the same things, and some on a regional level, but there's so many little things that maybe the average citizen doesn't think moves the needle, but they're all impactful because if you don't, it's kind of like building a Lego castle, right? You got to start with the first brick.
Yep.
And each brick we add, as long as we don't shoot ourselves in the foot and take that brick off, we should be moving forward.
Yep. Love it. You mentioned the Mersen expansion, Vantage Plastics. Ooh, tell me about Vantage Plastics. I love those guys at Vantage Plastics.
Yeah.
Like, what a great company.
So in their Vantage Plastics up in Aranac County, me growing up here, they've been here. Who heard of Vantage Plastics, right? But they've been so successful up in Aranac County for so long that they needed to expand. And they found a building in Bay County, 325,000 square feet, former Dow Plastic Pipe building on Wilder Road. And just to give you kind of a sense of what 325,000 square feet is, that's about 7 acres under a roof. And
Massive.
when you're in one end of that building and you look to the other, you think, could I run the whole way? Could I hit a golf ball that far? And the answer to both of those for me personally is no. But most people looked at that building and said, heck no. And they had a vision and they said, heck yes.
Yeah.
So they put in over $30 million. It looks 180 degrees different than those dark days when they first moved in, hired 93 people. And that whole portion of that industrial area, Wilder, completely flipped the script.
Awesome.
And they, you go through there, and we just had a kind of a walkthrough not long ago for a different reason, but they made 150,000 sleds that hunters use to take into the woods in the wintertime. And they're just waiting to be picked up, and they send out 2 trucks a day. But these awesome sleds, 150,000, like, it's hard to fathom that something like that could look small, but that building is so massive.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just making stuff.
Yeah. The Vantage Plastics, I love Vantage Plastics. Like, it's semi-local.
Yeah.
It's about as local as you can get without it being originally based in Bay County. And they came into Bay County, and they're like you said, heck yes.
Yeah.
And they made the investment, and they're diving in. They're hosting like days where kids can go into the factory and experience it. Like, maybe this could be a career for me. And so to see a company like Vantage Plastics operating at that level come into Bay County and really dive in and say, we're not just going to be a great company, we're going to integrate ourselves into the community and keep growing, and some of the other initiatives that they're doing. I'm gushing about you, Vantage Plastics, but
For
you
sure.
deserve it because you're awesome.
And what, in most of the companies in our area, the ownership lives here. They spend their money here.
Mm-hmm.
They know their neighbors and friends. They care about their employees. And I think it's an interesting experience for an employee to see the difference between maybe something that's a little more antiseptic when you go to work to a place where people know who you are and know your significant other's name and care that your dog just died, or
and are doing things as a company to really support you as a person, your education, your financial literacy, like all of these things. They're really saying if we want successful employees, it's more than just giving them the paycheck. It's supporting them as a whole person. And it doesn't get any.
Yeah, we could probably go 45 minutes just on that. But they may not know it, but a lot of their best practices get talked about in other business meetings because people should at least hear the nuggets about what they're doing.
Yeah, it raises the standard for everybody.
Yeah.
It inspires other companies. It gives them ideas. Everybody leveling up is a successful community. Talk to me about Michigan sugar desugarization, taking the sugar out of Michigan sugar, but you'll explain.
Yeah. So a big deal going forward is not just companies making money. These companies, they're run by smart people. They can figure out how to shave this and push this forward and increase profits. Michigan Sugar's grower owned, and they rely on the folks in the C-suite there to run the business in a profitable way. Well, they had an opportunity to take some technology and increase their output by 80 million pounds of sugar annually, which is funny. Like, every time I say that, I want to repeat it to make sure people understand it's 80 million pounds without having to plant another beet. And of course that means more profits and more sugar to sell and things like that. But it also means for the residents in the south end of Bay City, and we don't have to have any more trucks. Now, there's still a lot of trucks, but there's not enough trucks that would be 80 million pounds more. We don't have to have 80 million more pounds worth of loaders being used, 80 million more pounds of time it takes to do that in labor. Yeah. So all of these things and energy being used and all that. So what they've really done is you take one cake and you turn it into two, or just a sustainability project on a next level. Yeah. And they've kind of forced me to do some research into some of the other comparable companies to them in America, and they set the standard very high, and their leadership expects that. And I think they're just such a great company that's kind of hiding in plain sight. Everybody knows who they are for one reason or another. I grew up West Side right near there, so believe it or not, when I moved away, I kind of missed the smell in the autumn time. And I've come to know that smell is the smell of money to our community and what it means to our community. And it's just such a great story. And it's a really cool thing when you drive by and you see that parking lot full and people going in there. I have no illusion that I did that, but I think it's neat to say, like, I helped do a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Michigan Sugar just making the process more efficient by essentially capturing sugar that would have been waste products from their process.
Yeah, I didn't explain any of that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So they're instead of that sugar going to waste, they now have a facility to be able to pull the remaining sugar out, which is amazing. I mean, like, think about the grower owner saying, like, I invested and I grew these beets from the ground and I put in all this time and investment and energy into growing this. Now it's being used as much as it can be, as opposed to some of it being wasted. Just from the efficiency standpoint is amazing. So Michigan Sugar, thank you. You're awesome. You think about companies like Vantage Plastics, like Michigan Sugar, to us here in Bay County, big companies, large companies operating on a really significant scale. But you look on the other side of the Bay County business world, specifically smaller businesses, maybe even like pre-small businesses that dreaming entrepreneur who's saying, I have a side hustle and I want to jump in and do this full time, or somebody working a full-time gig, employment gig, but saying my passion is this XYZ. I have no idea how to start. We have such a priceless gift in Bay County and in this region in the SBDC that will serve these size businesses, these entrepreneurs that are looking to take their first step into the business world. Tell me what the SBDC is, what it does, how it works, how it can help small businesses.
So the Small Business Development Center we have a dedicated business consultant in Bay County, and that's a huge thanks to the folks at Bay County for allowing us to use the funds to make this happen. And our the consultant we have now is Michelle Judd. And Michelle, she's got a storied history, her and her family. She's run restaurants, Bay City Boat Lines, Antique Center. She's a professor at Northwood and Saginaw Valley. She's got all this experience, and she's ready to be a consultant for everybody's business. And it's free to those businesses.
And it is free. You have a legit business owner, multi-business owner, a professor of business.
Already on your payroll.
On your payroll, except you don't have to pay a dime. All those questions that you're spending hours Googling, all of those, like, oh, I wonder about this, all those thousands of business books, all of those. Wouldn't it be great if you had somebody just set up a meeting with you and tell you what you need to do and say, this is what you need to do now, and this is the planning that you have to do so that you're successful, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to walk you through everything because I want you to be successful. And wouldn't it be awesome if that person was free and would help you for free? That is the SBDC.
Yeah. And I think the easiest way to kind of explain it is, say, Phil, you were awesome at making muffins. And you said, you know what? Everybody's told me for years I can open a muffin business. And maybe you don't need a whole lot of help with the muffin part.
Yeah.
But what do you know about setting up an LLC? What do you know about getting your books in order?
Because you're great at baking doesn't mean that you're a great business owner. And that's okay because you're great at baking. And
how much is sugar? How much is butter?
Exactly.
How much do you need to charge per muffin?
What about taxes?
Right.
What about employees? Like, what happens when you're like, oh crap, like business is going really good. I need some people to help me. How do you do that? What is unemployment? How does all of that work? How do I not get sued? All of these things.
Help me go over this potential lease.
Yes.
All those things. And I think it's tough for people because they see that as admitting that they don't know something. Mm-hmm. And that's the best part. It's okay to know those things. You're supposed to be good at what you're good at.
Yeah, be good at baking.
And the best way to think about it is, and this kind of works for Bayfuture too, is you think of us as somebody who's already going to provide service to you You just need to let us do that.
Yep.
So for the SBDC, this could also be for established businesses, right? So say Phil Ike has been making coffee cups for Starbucks for years, and you're getting older and you need a succession plan. We got to figure out what we're going to do with this business. A lot of folks don't like to think about that because we don't like it's just a business decision. People think like they're paying for their own funeral ahead of time. It's not that at all. Mm-mm. So they get hesitant. But if you don't do it, what happens? Your business just withers.
Yep.
So Michelle can help with that. You just want to get some marketing analysis and find out, hey, who else is selling coffee cups around here? And who do they sell to? Like the SBDC has all kinds of resources. It doesn't have to be, they have to know everything about my business. Maybe you're just getting ready to go to the bank and you want to make sure you're lender ready.
Yep.
And our banking friends love this service in Bay County because it helps them have better customers, and they get to not say, push it back across the table and say, no, they get to say, this is awesome. You've done your homework.
Yeah.
And it's so valuable. There's so many businesses, and Michelle's one of them. If she would have known about that when she first started out, she would have taken more advantage. And I think she's met with, in about 18 months, just over 200 either current or prospective businesses.
Awesome.
And the folks who engage, and some folks have done some testimonials. Artigiano here in downtown Bay City is an SBDC client. Oh my goodness, I'm spacing out, but the Princess and the Hound won the
the mobile pet grooming,
the pitch competition, which I don't know a darn thing about how to set up a social media, but if I did, I would just copy hers. I don't know how she gets every dog to smile, but the pastry shop and all cream and sugar, the ice cream place. And people say, oh yeah, but those are successful businesses. But if you were to ask them, I would guess a good portion of that would be because they were kept on track.
Yeah.
And that's really all we're offering, is that folks can come in and get that service. And in a community like ours, Phil, when I'm really long-winded on this topic, but it's very important, is the businesses that are here, if we can help them grow, that's that stable base. Mm-hmm. If we have a bunch of businesses teetering, or maybe they'll be open, maybe they'll be closed, that's tough because it's emotional for citizens to go by and see empty storefronts or a business they like closed. That's an emotional thing.
Yep.
If we can keep them happy, healthy, and profitable, they're going to be better business owners. They're going to be better community advocates. All those things, the water will just flow the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. So SBDC, man, like if you're a small business who's like, man, all I would want is a little bit of help or somebody to tell me what to do. It's kind of the curse of us, every small business owner. Like you open your small business because you want to be your own boss, and then kind of challenge after challenge, and you just cry out to the universe, I just want somebody to tell me what I need to do. You kind of clamor for that, and here's expert level consultancy in SBDC, and so people, you got to take advantage of it.
For sure.
We want you to be healthy business owners. We want you to be happy business owners, successful business owners. So it's 100% confidential.
Yeah.
So if say that you do not want people to know that you are receiving that assistance, nobody will know.
I'm glad you brought that up, Phil, because the businesses I mentioned said it was okay to mention that.
Yes.
But the other 170 like to remain confidential.
And that's the thing. People will shout SBDC's praises from the mountaintops because it is such an invaluable resource. But that doesn't mean that you have to. You can just get all the help that you need, be a successful, amazing business, and say, yes, I'm doing it. And you don't ever have, it's 100% confidential. It's 100% free. You get answers, you get help, you get assistance. So people, please take advantage of it. I love this conversation about Bayfuture because we're talking about the scope and the nuance of what is economic development. On one side, you've got almost $1 billion of investment over the course of the strategic plan. You've got large multi-million-dollar companies, multi-million-dollar investments being made. On the other side of economic development, you have assistance for the person who wants to open the cake baking business but has no idea how to do that. That's also really critical economic development. And Bayfuture being such an important part in that, pushing that needle forward and capturing resources from the state that we can use, even if we're not aware of them, like that sanitary sewer out in that farm field. It's going to help me one day. I don't know how, but it's going to help me. And you guys are on the ground doing that work every single day for us. So, Jim, I want to thank you for all the work that you guys do over at Bayfuture. And then, of course, taking the time today to chat. So thanks so much, Jim.
Appreciate it so much. It's tough to get the word out because we're not limelight seekers. We want the community to be the limelight, but it's very rewarding work, and I appreciate the time to talk about it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jim. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Awesome, dude.